heading to Connecticut on my way. just from Greenberg, Maryland. Just left at the bus. Bus started. So I was actually hearing. I was working yesterday night. I had some deliverables to finish. So I finished and I kept on speaker. So I was kind of passively listening when I fell asleep. Because I have to give and to wake up for the day to get ready. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but we do hear a lot of background noise.
Yes, I know folks are talking around me. I'm in the bus. Apologize. Yeah. So actually, what you're seeing, I had my version of an intro. Once I was going to like a car dealer or like a guy who sells car. I was having a casual conversation. Then he asked me like I told do you guys have any hybrid or anything like that? And he said no, don't believe in all those. That global warming whole thing is fake. It's all politically driven. Just get a big SUV. Don't think about it. I know he's being a sales pitch. I can understand. And but I took a little time. Like hey, I know, I understand your responsibility in this place as a business, like as a role. It do you think all you have to do is simple question I asked him is like, do you have a car garage? He said yes, I have a garage. Is it an indoor or it's a closed door? He told. Would you leave your car switched on inside that? What would happen? Like, yeah, man, it will get hot. I said that's what exactly happened. Can you imagine it to a scale? And would you put your kid there? He said no. Said the garage. So then he denied. Then I said, I know you can deny because you have all your power and everything. Your grandkids will teach you. That's all. You're gonna hear this message later from your grandkids or your kids. If they grow up, they're gonna hammer you. So,
right.
Sometimes the one-on-one, peer-to-peer doesn't work. Everybody is going to learn through their young generation. But I know we are losing something in the meantime. I agree on that. But we have to act in whatever way we can. You're still like come on board or do whatever you can. And you don't want the nature to take over. It may not be that easy. But it might not be that familiar.
It's a little bit hard to understand, Shankar, because when you talk, I can hear that background noise, and it gets a little bit challenging. Like I really have to put the cell phone on my ear.
Sure, I think it got a little calmer. I was saying, like as a humans, we have a responsibility. We can change things. We can go with the nature in a good way, or else the nature also has its wild side. We don't want that to witness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the folks I met in my local community, they have a very good science background and they work with scientists. Calls like they go and have like neighborhood meetings in the house. We used to take turns in each of the house, and I've seen a couple of. And we also have like a resilience group and activism counseling group, more to just to vent out. Because you're trying to do one day, you're burnt out. That's fine. If there is somebody to listen you, to put you back into the track, it's okay to get exhausted. Like I can imagine right after this block party, like things should be exhausted. That's okay, but we put our effort. So we just have to focus on rejuvenation, then launch those ideas or take actions, then come back. Yeah. So but some of the folks in those things, they really tried like what we are doing to our grandkids. And people think amassing wealth is what they are passing to their grandkids. Actually, that's not the nature is the wealth. Actually, people don't realize it. Yeah, anybody has any thoughts, please share it.
I don't. I don't know if Jamin does.
I was out of earshot for a couple of minutes. What's the topic?
Well,
Sorry?
unfortunately, because of a lot of the breakup and background noise, I kind of missed a lot of that there, to be honest. So, sorry about that, Shankar.
Oh, I was just asking what the topic is, Shankar. Because I was gone for a couple of minutes.
Oh, no problem. Like, there are, in my neighborhood, there are like a local groups. So folks get together and they have it's all focused on climate action. It each have their own way to approach it, and each also support each other. Like for example, resilience group or like activism counseling group. You want like your thoughts are going very fast, then what you can do, naturally there will be a exhaustion because you're not able to accomplish everything that you want. So then at that time, take a little step back and say, all right, there are things working on, there are things working on which I'm not noticing, but things are working on. So take it a little easy. I know enough is not enough. Still, let's be hopeful. There are some people doing at a higher degree, so things will work. All might not go through me, all might not come to my familiarity. Still, things are happening around in a good way.
Oh man, that was so broken up. I got like
I'm sorry.
pieces, but don't worry about it, Shankar. Look, the most important thing is you're here. You're with us on.
Yeah, I will join through the phone call. That'll make it easier.
Let's see here. Three more hours. It feels like a long time when you're really tired. But it's cool.
I'm back through the phone. Hope you guys can hear better. Hear me better?
Let's give it a try, Shankar.
Okay. Yeah. Is it better now? Am I audible?
Hmm?
Am I audible?
Yeah, I think it's breaking up still.
Okay. I'll take a little easy. Okay. Thank you.
Cayman, put some music so you can wake up.
Well, let's start talking about something. That'll wake me up. Let's talk about how awesome it is to be a part of the Block Party and the Collective Superintelligence. Let's call it CSI, Collective Superintelligence. Like we were talking about earlier, in the face of what we're facing, the only way to have any peace, in my mind, is to be proactive. This is being maximally proactive because we are committing to cooling the planet in time with the greatest possible degree of collective superintelligence, which will accelerate it even further. It's what will really empower it to happen in time, because we have to do this so quickly. So many things are going to have to change around, transform, so that we can just whoosh, get it done really fast. To get it funded, we might look to a combination of governments and private sector and banking sector, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And, say, look, if we don't do this, everything will be lost, including not just all your money, but your money and your life, right? You know the bargain, your money or your life? This will take it all. So what you need to do is invest in SRM, and we just have to figure out some suitable instrument or whatever to just make it happen quickly, whether it's a loan, a bond. We thought up a 1% tax for real estate owners along the coasts of the world. That's the highest value real estate. We thought that'd be a pretty fair trade. Could raise a bunch of money that way. But we're going to figure all that out. That's the bottom line. We're going to figure out every last step, every last part of the entire set of solutions. That's our challenge. Look, we know it's physically possible. Everything else is just details. I'm not saying the details are not important, but we have this on our side, okay? Every human being on Earth wants what we are selling. That's a big plus. And if we're the only ones who can provide it, right, because we've got the holistically intelligent view of the whole, right, including global holistic modeling and optimizing exactly where to place all the mirrors and all the different kinds of solutions. We optimize all of that. Who else is going to have that capability? See, as we come together, we're forming a bit of a black hole. If you look at that beautiful painting above James' head, imagine that there's a black hole there somewhere, right? Or just look at the constellation where Shankar is, right? Imagine among those pulsating pulsars, there's a black hole there somewhere. All right. this black hole is sucking in all the people who care and who get it and who get that a solution is possible. And a powerful filter, as we discussed earlier. Well, guess what? We're sucking in all the people who pass that filter. And that's creating a critical mass. That's going to empower us to do this because we're doing it with collective superintelligence. We kick off the collective superintelligence exponential, and we get SRM done so crazy fast. It'll just blow people away. And we really don't have time to wait. What are we going to do? Play Russian roulette and see if we have an ice-free Arctic this summer? Right? Here, let me show this. Let me queue up a couple of images. And I'll screen share. Let's see here. Okay, I just wanted to show this oil boom thing. Simple. Okay, great. All right. See this image? These images? These
Yes.
floating barriers. It's called an oil boom. This image over here shows it very well. It contains stuff that floats on the surface, like contaminants or oil. In this case, it's probably oil that they then poured sawdust on or something like that. And then, you know, they can basically, it's to contain stuff like that. Okay, now imagine that the stuff that we're containing are trillions of, you know, golf ball sized thin glass balls, silica balls that are bright white and reflect sunlight. Okay? So we'll use those booms, like those oil booms, to contain who knows how many miles or even hundreds of miles of the stuff off the coast, so to speak, of the Arctic sea ice. Obviously, it's not coast because there's no land. It's just floating ice. But use these booms and cast a very wide net. I mean, it could be an area similar to Antarctica itself. Okay, listen to what Dot says. Dot has good points here. Storms and waves would cause some to escape. Well, here's the thing. If some escape, and we could always, you know, put up a big net or something like that, like at a golf course or something, if we really wanted to get sophisticated, if we cared that much. But let me tell you why we don't care that much. Number one, it's silica, which is, it's basically made of sand, right? That got melted and, you know, blow molded into a, you know, a mold and then popped out. That really may be the way to go, actually. If they do escape, well, they're still floating, so they're still doing their job. Even if they float down to the equator or down to southern Chile, they're still doing their job, right? Unless they come smacking into a rock at 80 miles an hour and smash, well, then they just become sand again. So, excuse me. So there's nothing like toxic or contaminating about them. That's the good thing. And in fact, I got the idea for this from, this will be a good image for you guys to see. According to Nolan. All right. Let's see what's going on. Okay, here we go. Oh no, what I wanted is this. Okay. Okay. All right. Here goes. So this nonprofit called ICE 9/11, which was started by a Stanford professor by the name of Leslie Field, the idea is they take this really fine silica powder and cover the snow with it. You see how it's brighter than this particular, let's see here. Well, actually, I'm not sure, but I don't know what that is, and I don't really care. What I wanted to see, what you see is this bright white material made of sand, right? That's the silica powder. Well, the golf ball size balls that I was talking about, they'd be contained in an oil boom, would be made of this material, and it would be just as white. So let's see here. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to show that. So we'd cover the the surface of the Arctic sea ice and other ice with that powder, and then surrounding the Arctic sea ice by tens of miles or hundreds of miles or who knows what, distance off the coast, we'd cover it with trillions of these golf ball size reflectors. That's how we're going to refreeze the Arctic. Both of those ways are how we're going to refreeze the Arctic. But it may take a more general cooling of the oceans to really refreeze the Arctic, but at least those will protect the ice that's already there between those two solutions. And Dot says that we need a website like that talking about SRM and marine permaculture. Yep, I agree. Let's have a website and let's put all the different variations up there. I guess we could start with a page on radish or something, huh? Just to keep it in the family. All right, and the marine permaculture is needed to heal the climate and create habitats. Agreed and agreed. Absolutely. Yes, we've got to look at this holistically. And, oh yeah, a wiki. That's a great idea. Maybe a wiki. We've got the website on WordPress. I wonder if they have a wiki. I wonder if WordPress has like a built-in wiki, or there's got to be an add-on wiki. Anyway,
that's my guess.
Okay, so we'll get an add-on wiki and wiki it up. So anyway, yeah, so boom, 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 boom. We come up with the holistic plan. We sell it to the world. How do we sell it to the world? Through a combination of projects that have a positive return on investment, like the aquaculture, permaculture, etc. Power generation. We also sell it by just hitting up property owners along the coasts and show a map of who contributed and who didn't, right? So there'll be this social pressure, right, for people to contribute. Someone should contact Ecosia. They are already talking about geoengineering. And we've got a blog there, Ecosia. Okay. Oh, let's see. Let's go ahead here and do a screen share. Take a look at the Ecosia blog. Can technology solve climate change? What is geoengineering? How does it work? How safe is it? Carbon capture, how to mitigate climate. All right, where are they talking SRM? I see a lot about greenhouse gases. Oh, it's a search engine that plants trees. Wow. How about that? What is it, like Ecosia.com or something like that? Search engine. Search engine that plants trees. Search the web to plant trees. Well, that's cute. That is very cute. How about that? Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Talk with them. Huh. Well, we're the collective superintelligence that cools the planet. They're the search engine that plants trees. We're the collective superintelligence that cools the planet. You know, we've got our little niche, right? You know, hi. All right, cool.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one that came in my mind. I know you remembered we told about the Spica bomb. That was one of the idea. Then you remember the Starlink satellite? The Starlink satellites.
Starlink
satellites.
Starlink satellite.
Like Elon Musk's project.
Yeah. So I know they're launching in the space like a network. Okay. Do you think those satellites can be integrated to create something to deflect? No, I'm not saying the satellite reflects, but any other tool added to that because they're already in like a web network or something like that.
Just a communication satellite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's a communication satellite. But the point I'm trying to tell is not saying the satellite will reflect sunlight. This satellite can be integrated in some other way where it creates a thin membrane or something that deflects the sunlight. Because always something is launched into space, can we make some use out of it. can some innovation be right there and
12,000 satellites. Oh,
Bet there's probably a pretty cool video on it.
12,000 satellites.
so
Right?
we could yeah, exactly see that's a lot. Okay, I know astronomers not gonna be happy. Yet it's a project. It's a project by itself. Why don't we mount something on the satellite or something like that? All I'm talking in a very hypothetical way. So that creates like some kind of a talking between all these satellites, which creates like a I don't know what we can do so that there forms a deflecting surface which can deflect the sunlight. If not all around the world, at least maybe in those ice caps regions. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, to deploy, but those would be low-flying satellites. So I don't know. I think if we deployed any kind of significant amount, and since it's low-flying, there's substantial air and air friction. And so if we tried to deploy a substantial area of even thin film, super light, it would provide drag, and the satellite wouldn't be able to fly. And B, all the I don't know if there is a B. I think that would be the main thing, the drag.
James has his hand up.
Oh, yeah. James, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, no, for interrupting. I know I seem to be taking up a lot of time. But in relation to Starlink endeavor, yeah, it's actually, I don't know what article you were reading there about 12,000 satellites. That's actually, I think, as far as I know, gone up to 30,000 satellites now, if not more. The satellite array is basically connected basically in or octagonal hexagonal kind of a formation as well. But it is a high orbit satellite network because of the close proximity that each satellite keeps in contact with each other for avoidance and everything else, and also because of the millions or thousands and thousands of satellites that are in low Earth orbit underneath it. So it is outside or at a higher altitude as far as I know. And because when I was watching the Elon Musk's presentation on it, I was actually that thought. I think Shankar just mentioned it. He was breaking up a lot there, but I grasped part of it, and I think what he was saying was, could we implement them in some way to have also reflect the light? If it is in high orbit, I can't see why not, because they are using a type of Mylar sail device on it anyway. Like, so I'd imagine that would have wind drift or whatever it is, or solar drift, as you say, being pushed by solar winds. So I think they've taken that into consideration, but it is in high Earth orbit as far as I know. And I was thinking that as well. Maybe put the mirrors on the backs of those satellites and have them facing out. So I just said I'd say that anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, Gene. Gene, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Quality is great, but
Yeah, I will talk word by word. Maybe if I talk continuously, there is a chopping. So the one point is, what I feel is, yes, the satellites are there. That satellites are reflecting sunlight, maybe a minuscule, even all of those integrated ones. But I think I mentioned, I was discussing with Jim or everybody in the last call, like what I'm pushing my thinking is how we can do it in a more intangible way. That's like creating a membrane of light or something. between the satellites.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we approach Maryland Avenue, stop here. I have the reservation for 39 passengers.
Okay, the announcement is done. Okay, so what I was thinking is, one example I can give is like the aurora borealis. It comes in the sky, it eliminates some kind of a gas reaction happens, charge particle reaction happens. It forms out of thin air, a transparent sky, it forms like a layer which can now deflect sunlight. The clouds deflect sunlight. Like that, between the satellites, can some either chemistry, physics, or something combine, or some nanoparticles combine, which creates like a thin membrane reflecting the sunlight. So that is what exactly I was trying to tell. I know the satellites are already in the place, so they help as an infrastructure. But now, any other technology that is available, can we link them and see like it is basically like I guess watched a laser show. The laser show is done. They just pass a cloud and they do a laser show in the sky. And how the out of the sky some kind of illuminated surfaces form. That illuminated surface will deflect the sunlight back. That is the point I was trying to tell. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you, Shankar. Boy, I wouldn't know the first thing about that, but I would think that between nanoparticles, holograms, you know, I'm just thinking of like some search terms or some topics.
Hologram is what I was trying to tell. You got me, Damon. Hologram.
And then, but yeah, also nano, also dust particles, also condensation. Anyway, I bet there's it. See, this is ripe for collective superintelligence to bring together all these different folks from these different overlapping disciplines and say, all right, who knows how to find out where we would find such stuff if anyone was working on it, or what's possible, or whatever. And yeah, so we're simply going to have to explore all possible avenues for reflecting away sunlight.
Sweet dreams, everybody.
You too, Maida. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, Maida.
Great to see you guys too. I'll see you next Wednesday.
Take care, Maida. Have a wonderful day.
Arigato
Thank you,
gozaimasu.
Maida.
Maida. Arigato. Domo. Arigato.
Oh God, I need to wake up in less than an hour to give a yoga class, and I completely forgot about that. Jamin, you're gonna get dizzy. I can't leave until you stop doing that.
Okay, one more. Okay. Thank you, Maida.
Good night, everybody.
If I might, just taking from what you were saying there, if, as you said, everything that can be implemented for SRM can, should be explored. So if there was a way of implementing some form of SRM on the backs of those satellites, I'm sure the idea would be intriguing to the mind of somebody like Elon Musk. And another thing as well is that he sounds like a man that's up for a challenge. And I know that he started off his first endeavors with solar panels and all this. So I was wondering, given that we're on about SRM and everything else, and a suggestion there in the last week's conversation that was going on was maybe put reflective sheeting on roofs of houses on places all over the world and on ordinary people's houses. And it was talked about anyway. But we have, like, a lot of houses now are implementing solar panel technology, and it is a great form of technology to reduce the carbon footprint, we say. But what about putting a challenge up to Elon Musk? Could he design a solar panel that is white and not only can absorb the energy but reflect the light as well? So maybe he'd be intrigued by a challenge, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I'd love for him to join. In fact, I'd love to make a public challenge to Elon Musk that if he comes up with a better design than any of the big four that we're working on right now, or the big five, including the bubbling, thank you, Guy, Lane, then we'll give him $1 billion. That'll be the challenge.
In the DOD has posted some comments, or DOT has posted some comments.
Dot says a discussion about oyster carbon sequestration where they point out it will deplete ocean alkalinity and result in more CO2. Nolan, click the link. I know you want to. I have a general statement to make. Are we on mute? Nope.
Mute. Okay. So you still want to keep this sharing?
Well, if it's more CO2, that doesn't mean it's something. That doesn't mean one solution is out of it. It's a bunch of solutions that have to happen at the same time.
Exactly. Here's what I was thinking. For any given system, right, whether it's oyster, kelp, whatever, bubbles, you take a given system with a given design and you model what's the reflectivity, how much carbon will be sequestered, how much of the ocean will be deacidified, right? How much ocean cleanup will happen, right? All the factors that we care about, right? How much ecosystem support, whatever, right? And then, you know, some form of estimate of cost, right? And any other unintended consequences, disruption of marine life, disruption of shipping lanes, I don't know what, right? But basically make a table, make a database. So for every possible solution, here's the whole profile. Here's all the information you need at a glance. And then we can have some sort of objective function. Look, we don't want to spend more than this amount of money, and we want to achieve this, this, and this. These are the priorities, da 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 da. You know, what optimal mix do you calculate? I used to actually write software that would compute such things. So that's very straightforward. So we find the optimal mix of solutions, subject to whatever constraints we impose. We need to clean up the oceans to this degree. We need to deacidify the oceans to this degree, etc. I think I was reading that the oysters, I think Dot was saying that the oysters clean the water. They filter out, you know, particles, debris, I don't know what, you know, waste. So they might provide a really nice filtering mechanism to clean up. I don't know. This is why we need to quantitatively analyze all of these impacts before Shankar falls asleep. And oh, can we go back to the screen share? Asks Scott. You want to do that? Because I don't know where you were.
Sure. Oysters are filter feeders within the food chain. They remove all kind of suspended matter from the water column, inclusive phytoplankton, detritus, clay particles, and bacteria. They produce feces in the shape of rather solid pellets containing organic C+ carbonate and silicate shells of the phytoplankton plus some clay. Pellets become much faster sedimented. Well, I don't know anything about this, but I'm glad you shared it, Dot.
It sounds like just what the doctor ordered, because it filters out the bad stuff and turns it into clay pellets. And then it takes the good stuff and turns it into gourmet food, right? So it's providing this ecosystem service of vacuuming out crap, bacteria, suspended whatever, you know, just crap. It filters the water. It leaves you with a delicious oyster. You might even get lucky and get a pearl every now and then.
I don't understand the chemistry.
You want to read it?
Well, it basically equates to more CO2 in the atmosphere, but what I'm saying is I would have to go back to Ye Tao's presentations to like I don't know about the proportions and stuff. I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. Look, we don't need to nail all that tonight. The important thing to note is that there are multiple factors that we care about, so we can quantify each, and then be able to do apples to apples comparisons between different solutions in terms of how much they address each of various quantifiable things that we care about. What do we care about? Sunlight getting reflected back into space. We care about the filtering of the water, the deacidification of the ocean, the sequestration of carbon, the sequestration of methane, you know, the capture of methane. If we can combine one of these with methane capture, that would be pretty cool. One or more of these. Maybe, here's an idea. Wherever methane is bubbling up, cover it with a giant tarp that's reflective. Capture the methane out of the tarp and suck it out with a straw.
There we
Okay.
Dot just says, but there are no benefits compared to kelp, only negatives.
Bamboo straw, ha ha ha. Kelp creates a habitat, sequesters carbon, makes the ocean less acidic, and gets us valuable ingredients. It also grows much faster. I think we need to do kelp all over the place, regardless of SRM. And if we can combine the two, then all the better. Since the cheapest SRM solution, listen to this, the cheapest SRM solution, I believe, will involve creating these like mega structures that can be very lightweight. So they don't have to take a ton of material, but they would include columns that would go all the way down to the ocean floor. And that would go up, way up in the air as well. So we can use these columns to support pumps and all kinds of stuff. But it would be a fixed system, not free floating with the currents, but fixed. And so the currents would wash by. The columns would support these vast draping canopies of thin film reflective material that would also capture methane. Whoosha, wah, wah, wah. Okay. Okay. So, you know, so that might be a big, huge, just roll it out style solution, right? We could also use the reflected sunlight, capture a portion of it in the form of heating up for solar thermal power generation. So you could imagine big long strips of this stuff, several miles wide and you know, hundreds of miles away from the shore. So they start at the shore and just go out into the ocean, okay? And so let's take an extreme case where we go 100 miles wide and 1,000 miles deep out into the ocean, right? And 100 by 1,000, so that'd be 100,000 square miles. And 10 of those makes 1,000,000 square miles. So it's a significant chunk. 100 miles wide by 1,000 miles deep. It's kind of crazy, but anyway, so what? I mean, it's just to give a ballpark. And then underneath we have all this kelp farming. Above, what do you have? You have reflectivity. That's the whole point, or the original point. You have solar thermal power generation, and then the power goes right back inland to feed that population. And furthermore, you could even have rainwater capture, right? Such as it is. Methane capture, and then supporting all the kelp, providing all this infrastructure, this scaffolding to hold whatever pumps, whatever this, whatever that, wave generated pumps, whatever, right? So you create this whole infrastructure and a whole bunch of solutions. This is basically, you know, engineering, re-engineering the world's oceans is what we're doing. Anyway, that's just a ballpark example. But maybe in addition to all that, kelp farms should just be, you know, started here, there, and everywhere for all the benefits that they bring, right?
Dot says, I read about an SRM solution for making micro bubbles on the ocean. I wonder if we can do that with something like this, maybe using wave energy.
Hmm.
Okay, hold on.
And then the sound. Did you want to do the sound?
Oh, good idea.
The subject of the final installment in our trio of truly tiny things is also measured in nanometers. It's not a microbe or a machine. It's just a little air bubble. You might be asking, other than spritzing up a champagne, what possible use could we have for nanobubbles? Well, let's find out.
Here, 8 meters under the sea, we found something out of the ordinary. What looks like white liquid is actually seawater that contains small air bubbles, which in turn produce even smaller bubbles. These so-called nanobubbles are the focus of a lot of attention, as they are part of a new system that can help restore aquatic life to a healthier state. Let's see how the nanobubbles are produced in a small water tank. A jet of water is coming out from the pump on the left. Once it's plunged into the water, this small nozzle produces micron-sized bubbles that further shrink as they travel through the water, turning into nanobubbles. Using a microscope, let's take a closer look at how the bubbles shrink down to nanosize. After a few minutes, the bubbles have gone from tens of microns to tens of nanometers. This is the carbon ceramic nozzle we saw earlier. The porous nature of the ceramic allows air to flow through. Apparently, it was impossible to produce nanobubbles with non-carbon-based ceramic. This system was developed not by a major company, but rather by a small factory run by Anzai Kantetsu. Their original technology has baffled many experts. There already existed several types of nanobubble systems, but all were complex and very costly. It wasn't too surprising that researchers were skeptical when they were first told that nanobubbles could be produced simply by sending air through a small ceramic nozzle. They never imagined it could be so easy. But demonstrations showed that nanobubbles remained in the water after the nozzle was taken out. The bubbles, which normally can't be seen with the naked eye, reflect light as they pass through a laser beam. Regular bubbles normally disappear quickly, but nanobubbles last for a long time, which is why they were detected by the laser. The researchers were convinced, and Anzai Kantetsu's discovery was put under the spotlight. According to developer Satoshi Anzai, their invention was the product of chance.
徳島県の大学とちょっとベンチャーをお手伝いしてまして、その中で野菜を乾燥させるプロジェクトがあったんですね。で、うまく野菜を乾燥させるために、ちょうど水に反応する波長帯のセラミックスを探してたんですよ。セラミックスで作るナノバブルはですね、バイオに非常に有効なことを発見しまして、でバイオに有効だということは、もしかしたらですね、今まで我々がこう溜めてしまった、ヘドロといいますか汚泥をですね分解することができるんじゃないかという発想にたどり着きまして。
The nozzle can be easily made in a multitude of sizes and shapes. This is particularly useful for adapting the technology for large-scale applications, such as the diffusion of nanobubbles at the bottom of the sea.
他のナノバブル発生装置はですね、大型化をすることが非常に難しいんですね。大きな海域とか大きな河川で発生をするには大量の機械が必要になってしまいます。また大きなエネルギーを必要としますので、もっと具体的に言えば高いプレッシャーであったりとか、大きな攪拌するためのモーターであったりっていうものが必要になるんですが、我々のセラミック式のものはですね、先ほど映像で見ていただいたように非常に小さな力で泡を発生することが。
Okay. Dot, did we get the idea? I think she just wanted to show us the idea. Yep. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, interesting stuff we can do with bubbles. And Dot, are you familiar with Guy Lane in Australia? He's interviewed Guy McPherson a number of times, apparently. Anyway, he was on earlier, and he was talking about bubbles produced by what was that organism? But it was something aquatic that could produce bubbles.
Algae or something like that, Jamin.
What's that?
Was it by using some form of sea algae or something like that, but it was completely natural and would break down naturally in the sea, isn't it?
That's it.
Something like that anyway, I think it was.
That's it. That's it. It's either sea algae or phytoplankton or something like that. Anyway, but it produced a bunch of bubbles. And so, bubble it up because that reflects. That's reflective, SRM. Anyway, the bottom line is, yeah. You should watch the recording. Yeah, he was on earlier. How much earlier? A number of hours ago. Yes, Shankar. You're on mute, Shankar. You're on mute.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any ceramic mechanical activity involved in the, like, how do we have to compress the air to pass through the ceramic, or how do you do that?
Your question is, how do we create the bubbles?
How do we pass through the air? Like, what I understood is, from when immersed in the water, the air bubbles comes out and comes as a nano, then it expands micro. How the air is pumped, or is it some kind of a mechanical activity or a kinetic activity, something like that?
Gotcha. Okay, so I think Dot was just trying to show us the idea of bubbles, period. And hey, could something like that. And then I said a way to produce bubbles that a gentleman mentioned hours ago, a very knowledgeable gentleman, Guy Lane, and he talked about, and thankfully it's on recording, that either it's some kind of algae or it's phytoplankton or something that produces a bunch of bubbles in addition to other benefits. So I'm going to now say again something I've said a couple times before, but sometimes repetition is valuable, okay? We create a list of all the factors that are important to us. SRM, methane capture, carbon sequestration, methane sequestration, ocean cleanup, ocean deacidification, growing kelp, growing oysters, filtering crap from the ocean like the oysters do, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that could possibly value for us, assign some relative measure of value per unit of the thing achieved, establish whatever constraints. By the end of all this, we want the ocean deacidified 98%, whatever, right? And we want to do this much SRM. And we want to have a budget not to exceed, $500 billion, whatever, right? And then we see what the optimal solution would be. Again, I used to write software to do that kind of optimization, and I loved it. So I'm really good at that sort of thing. And it's quite straightforward, not hard. And then we see what the optimal would be. And then we play with it. We do sensitivity analysis, and anyway, that's what I have to say. So there is an optimal solution out there. And we simply get the detailed statistics for all of the impacts of any given solution per unit of implementation. If a unit is a square kilometer, like was mentioned earlier, that Guy was mentioning for an implementation, I think they said like a $10 million investment, you get a square kilometer of whatever, right? That whole thing, right? I think we could do thin film reflective material for a fraction of that, but that remains to be analyzed. But anyway, you see? So we'll just analyze these different options very quantitatively. And the data is whatever the data is, right? And there will be positive impacts and negative impacts of any solution. Let's quantify both, right? Anyway, I'm just suggesting a methodology by which we can arrive at the right mix. Right? The optimal mix. To meet all our needs and all our constraints, if such a solution can be found. And we keep innovating and innovating and innovating until we meet our goals. All right, maybe we play with the mix of aquatic life, introduce the type of kelp, the type of snails, the type of oysters, the type of seahorses, you know, etc. And so I think that's why we need to do lots of R&D, lots of R&D, get data, perfect methods, right? Dot says, marine permaculture seems part of the optimal solution so far. I would totally agree with that. I mean, it just looks like nothing but positive. And I can't think of anything that would give you all of those positives to the extent that marine permaculture does. And it's probably profitable, right? So even Adam's soul would be happy. If you don't mind, we can watch videos on marine permaculture together where they talk about how they restore habitats. Sure, I'd be game.
Do you have a video in mind, Dot? I was just asking Dot if they have a video in mind.
Sure.
Okay, it sounds like Dot has one in mind, so I'll be waiting. Oh, sweet.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want...
This is my favorite solution. Okay.
What stories are out there that we can kind of invest our hearts in today that we know will be passed on to our children and our grandchildren? Because, I mean, that's what we call our traditions. That's what we call our sacred stories, you know what I mean? And it's like, this is one of those sacred things, care of the ocean, of Mother Ocean, to our children and our grandchildren. So, and not only, you know, not only is it a story of like care and love, but you've got this progression for profit, for health, for, you know, for rejuvenation of culture, for food scarcity, you know, going away. You've got all these solutions wrapped up into this one big idea that is a looming hole in permaculture. And when you look up ocean or sea or marine and the word permaculture, there's really hardly anything, but there is one thing. There is one thing there, and that is you. And so
well, thank you.
Like you are standing there as you're the trailblazer. And so it is an honor to be talking to the leader in ocean permaculture currently. I mean, you're leading the charge. I brought it up in my books and stuff and tried to study it and everything as best as I can, but you're leading the charge. So it is an absolute pleasure to have you on here and talk to you.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. And it's great to connect with you as well. I feel as though we've got a great opportunity to apply deep permaculture principles to life in the ocean and the ocean ecosystems. And by understanding those better, we can learn how to live in harmony with them. And I think that's a huge opportunity because the fate and the survival of 3 billion people on the planet depends on protein from the ocean. And if we can't make that sustainable, then we're going to be dealing with dire consequences. And turning that around, ensuring enough food for people and enough food for the ecosystems is vitally important for our own survival of our civilization, I would say.
And it's almost like this is a light switch we haven't even flipped on as humans yet. And it's literally that easy too. It's almost like a light switch.
Yeah, I think connecting the fate of the Earth and her ecosystems with the fate of civilization is something that hasn't been fully drawn. But I think there are a couple of books that touch on it. I mean, Soil is a bit like that. And the whole notion, there was this premise by several books actually that every major collapse of civilization tended to be preceded by a collapse of the soil. And that fundamentally it's the collapse of the soil that results in the collapse of the civilization. So if we extend that metaphor to soils and seas, it's when either one or both collapse that we lose our civilization. And literally, I think there's an existential challenge for us to keep the life in the seas and the soils alive and thriving in order to ensure that our civilization will continue.
Wow. So let's just start at the beginning. Let's introduce everyone to this concept of marine permaculture and what it is, how it's both a technique and it's also a concept. Because most people, I think that they're like, oh, all right, so you're gonna clean up the ocean and let things just, happen. But it is not like that. It is quite exciting because it can involve all these people.
Well, that's very true. And it's at a local scale. I mean, we've got more than 100,000 indigenous farmers. We're talking about subsistence farmers in the Philippines that grow a hectare of seaweed, and that's their survival, right? And for them, they're living on the front lines of climate disruption. The waters become too warm, the nutrient levels are too low. They cannot produce the crops that they had in decades past. And so that's a real challenge to enable their way of life to continue and to address the nutrient value chain gaps that have been introduced by climate disruption and to restore overturning circulation so they get enough cool water with the right nutrient levels so that these seaweed farms can continue to thrive. And that's the real challenge is to bring that back, because right now their communities are collapsing. The communities are not having the economic sustainability to even keep them running. The kids have to go off to the city. I mean, it's just, there's not a model for continuing those communities. And so until we can irrigation for seaweed farms is like irrigation for regular farms. If you have the difference between dry cropping and irrigation is enormous, especially if you have to survive droughts. And so we're bringing irrigation to seaweed farms for the first time. And we're able to give, there's in Indonesia, there are millions of seaweed farmers. And so being able to have that continue means a way of life for millions of people. And furthermore, these seaweed farms and kelp forests are habitat for billions of forage fish. And that's the base of the food chain for the protein source for 3 billion people.
Awesome. Can you define for us what ocean irrigation is? Because there's a
yes
for it.
Right. And so it's a way of thinking of it like irrigating a farm, drip irrigation. But effectively, when the water's too warm and aren't enough nutrients, you need to restore enough upwelling that we can actually bring the deep, cool water up to the surface. And that's what the seaweed lives off of. And so what's worked in previous decades no longer works. And so that's a bit of a challenge. And so our challenge and our opportunity is to make that work smoothly again. It's really filling the value chain gaps that climate disruption has caused. And once that works smoothly, people's livelihoods can be restored. And by the way, we can restore the sardine fisheries that have been decimated. And partly they've been decimated from the climate disruption as well. These people didn't create the climate problem, but they're feeling the brunt of it. They have no crop insurance. There is no backup. Their survival depends on these crops continuing. And I'm shocked at the number of suicides in India that farmers commit suicide in India because they have no backup. And, that's what we're dealing with, people on the edge of climate disruption. And so that's the problem. The thing that makes me enthusiastic about marine permaculture is that not only does it address these problems, but it ends up regenerating ecosystems in the ocean in terms of, first of all, the kelp forest down in Tasmania that's been mostly depleted can be regenerated with this mechanism. That creates habitat for forage fish as well. And it keeps an ecosystem alive that otherwise is predicted to collapse over the next 2 decades. By ensuring that can continue, we can actually ensure that we're able to keep those forage fish, game fish, apex predators. They all depend upon these kind of ecosystems for their survival. So it's really the base of the entire pyramid of life, if you would, in the ocean, this tree of life. It's critical to have the base of the tree be healthy and stable.
So many of us have heard about the Atlantic current slowing, but this has more to do with upwelling, right? And so are you replacing upwellings that have slowed or tailed off, or are you creating new upwellings, or both?
It's restoring regionally the upwelling, the overturning circulation. Normally, offshore, you have got offshore winds that will bring water up to the surface. For example, the summer winds off the coast of California with the Coriolis forces, they cause a lot of upwelling to occur in good years. Now, in 2016, that upwelling partially failed. The water was really warm, and we had the big warm blob. And when the water is warm, it's even harder to get the upwelling going. And that's the problem. If the winds aren't strong enough, or if the water's too warm, the upwelling doesn't happen, and 95% of the seaweed dies, as has died off Northern California, north of San Francisco. We've lost 95% of the Neurocystis kelp forest, and it's not coming back until we've taken care of 99% of the sea urchin problem that's come out as a result of this global warming scenario. So this warm current that started, back before 2013, it's actually caused a lot of problems up and down the coast, and those need to be addressed systematically, and marine permaculture is one way of addressing it locally.
So what have you proposed for the urchin barrens? Well,
the state of California Fish and Wildlife has been in discussions with the idea of harvesting. The urchin barrens are like zombies. They're walking around on the seafloor, starving, asking for more brains. And fundamentally, there's no kelp left to eat. And so one approach is to harvest some of them, rehabilitate them, and that means feeding them kelp, and then shipping them to Japan and California as uni for sushi, which is high value. But to do that, we need a lot of kelp. And where better to grow that kelp than on a marine permaculture offshore Northern California? We can grow kelp in 90 days. The challenge and the opportunity is you're not going to eliminate all the sea urchins overnight because they're just going to crawl back in. You take a few, you harvest those, you rehabilitate them by feeding them kelp that we grow offshore on floating platforms. And so we have the substrate, we have the upwelling, we can get the kelp to grow on our platform. We can partially harvest the kelp and feed that kelp to the urchins, and they will rehabilitate. They'll get plump and juicy and ready to go. And that's those rehabilitated urchins are marketable in food markets across the world. So that is a good model, but we need to have the kelp to do it. And marine permaculture is probably the most sustainable way to grow that kelp locally and without huge transportation costs, provide it to the urchin rehabilitation centers. We use endogenous energy. That means wave energy, solar energy, wind energy to bring water up from the deep to the kelp forest itself. And just like a drip irrigation system on land, we use a drip irrigation system and diffuser hoses to little holes to distribute the deep, cool seawater to the kelp forest. And so literally it's a drip irrigation system for a kelp forest.
Wow. I cannot wait to see this come to California in force. This is really exciting because I learned about this first when I read Seasteading. And
yes.
That book has started so many different ideas in my head and a lot more questions. But the number one thing that I've wanted to see is working examples. And you've won some recognition for the work you've done proving this model, right?
Well, yes, we've been developing it. We've received awards from several foundations, and we've also been featured in a new documentary called 2040, which just was released in Australia this month and has already hit number 9 in the box office against Hollywood feature films and everything. So, and we're going to do a showing in New York, I think, over the next few days. And at the end of June, there'll be a showing in DC as well. These are like preview screenings, but it's going to be released, I believe, later this year in America. And it's this great, hopeful view of the future in 2040. And so I think these visions are critical. And one of the 5 featured technologies is marine permaculture, and it's all about regenerating life in the ocean. And so it's this wonderful, hopeful view of the future, which is great. And relating to seasteading, we firmly believe that marine permaculture is the reason for seasteading to exist. In other words, first you build the mariculture, and then you build the communities that support the mariculture. So we're really looking forward to working with the seasteading community to make this become a vital economic force.
Absolutely. So that is so incredible. My first thought was like number 9 in Australia, marine permaculture. It's like you're like, not only are you coming from the edges of permaculture, but you're coming straight to the front. And then you may be one of the people that really breaks permaculture into the mainstream for a lot of people. This is amazing.
We really hope so. No, it's great. It's, I'll tell you, going to Australia is a real joy, and learning the deep principles of permaculture and applying them to marine ecosystems is incredibly rewarding. There's so much to be done, and the analogies are just incredible. I mean, from soils to seas, the principles apply across ecosystems, across the known universe. And that's what's incredible, is that it works so well. Understanding how we can live sustainably with the forests of Tasmania, as well as living sustainably in the forests of the kelp. I mean, they're both there, they're equally vibrant. And in fact, the diversity of species is absolutely critical. So the multi-species benefits accrue, I think, at least as much in the sea as they do on land. Utilizing the kelp, and the kelp are the seeding grounds for the eggs. That's where the herring lay their eggs. And I've got a story to tell from Hokkaido, Japan. In 1897, the Japanese in Hokkaido harvested 1 million tons of herring off the northwest coast of Hokkaido. And this they did every year, year in and year out. The herring would go between the Sea of Okhotsk in Russia to Hokkaido, Japan, and back in a migratory cycle. And imagine 1 million tons of herring being harvested each year. They would lay their eggs in the Saccharina kelp forest in the north of Hokkaido. And it wasn't until
James. Good to see you.
I'm sorry. Oh, Shankar. He fell asleep. Yeah.
99 red balloons floating in the summer sky. I'm just looking at the 99 red balloons below me there, so I'm singing 99 red balloons.
Oh. Ah, very good. Thank you. And thank you, Dot. That was awesome. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, you're getting there, Jamin, again. Don't worry, man. You can get there. Hang in there, man.
Oh, no,
I'll tell you a little story if you want.
Yeah, what you got?
Well, it's only a slight story. I think you actually know it. It kind of goes like...
Oh, wait. Your microphone got... We can't hear you. Hey, James, while you're figuring that out, I have a brief announcement to make, which is that in approximately 38 minutes, this meeting may automatically end because there's like a 24-hour limit. If that happens, click on the same link and it will get you back in there. Go to your email or wherever you got the link before, the web page, whatever, and we will be back. So that will happen sometime in around 37 minutes from now. Meanwhile, James, did you get your audio worked out? No. No. Can't hear you. I don't know what. Okay, now we see it muted. Now try to unmute it. Okay, now say something. No, can't hear you, James. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. But hey, check it out. I'll tell you a story, James. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, good. All right. So here's a story. Let's suppose that prior to developing the optimal mix of solutions to achieve all those things that I had mentioned, imagine that prior to that, we bring together through this medium of collective superintelligence all the individuals, groups, academic departments, laboratories, et cetera, who are doing anything and everything in these realms that we're talking about, okay? And we bring these people together and we ask them to mash their stuff up. We combine it, you know, do this and that, and change this, and just, you know, just evolve it. Evolve, right? Until we perfect. Oh, yeah. Good. Dot says email Brian Von Herzen. That's the same guy who Guy Lane recommended and spoke highly of. All right, so let's get him on. Let's get it on. So, you know, in this way we can perfect and optimize solutions. And only when we've done that, then we can take the data from these optimized solutions and run them through the global optimizer to find out which optimized solutions we're going to go with and how much of each. Boom, there's your solution.
Dot says, Brian is the marine permaculture guy that we just watched.
Oh, well, perfect. Perfect. Well, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah. That'd be super cool to actually talk to him.
Yeah. With Guy Lane on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get them both on. Let's get it on.
Yeah, I'm thinking we can have a schedule that's just like, okay, Guy and Brian have 2 different schedules on Friday. They're both decent chunks, but they only overlap for a piece.
Oh, right,
and we
right.
just show people these are the
yeah.
people that have committed to be here. Right? When they're overlapping, it's not like Guy's just giving a presentation while the other while Brian sits in the background.
No, they're talking to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good. Sounds very good. Stephanie, how you doing? All right. Kind of you to join us for the home stretch. We've got an hour and a quarter to go. All right.
Almost there.
Almost there. We're tired, Stephanie. Oh. Oh. Yeah. All the pieces are coming together, little by little. All the different solutions and the people. You just got to wash, rinse, repeat. Just keep rolling out the formula.
What's super exciting is that a bunch of parts of the formula are just lying around that we don't even know about them yet. They're just going to keep popping up.
Yeah, they're just self-assembling, right? And we've just created this beautiful space, this platform that people can then plug into. The block party. I still can't hear you. But it's okay, James. We've had a really good run today. Your microphone's muted, by the way. Try unmuting, maybe. No. Okay. All right.
May I just suggest something to my dad? Maybe if you take out the headphones and unmute the microphone.
James, is there a... So you're on a phone?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in the toolbar at the bottom left, does it give you the option? Does it say join audio? Because no?
I know I'm not in the room, but I'm guessing your phone is on auto screen when you turn it, so it's probably on full screen now. So if you put it straight up, you might be able to get that option that Nolan was talking about.
Well, shoot.
So the only other thing, Dad, is unplug the headphones and try to talk through the phone as a microphone.
From microphone management to solar radiation management. If you've got a problem, we can manage it at the block party. From Ireland to New Zealand, from Japan to California. If planetary overheating has you down, we can solve that too on the block party. James is saying, carry on, carry on. Thank you, James. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, you know what's interesting? One thing that's interesting about this whole thing is this is like destined to become the most popular topic on Earth. You know, just like putting people on the moon and bringing them home was like a really big deal for humanity, right? This is going to be another really big deal for humanity. It's just a very temporary period that it's just a handful of us who are in the conversation. This is so temporary. Not just an interesting conversation, the coolest conversation on Earth. The coolest conversation on Earth. No problem. Very good. Thanks, Stephanie. Oh. And I like the way Dylan put it. It kind of gives us this sort of quiet time for this, you know, for us to hang and really solidify that which we need to solidify before we're ready for this thing to go really go big. Yeah. And I think it's time to start speccing out the software. Say, this is what we want the console to do. This is what we want the database to do. That shouldn't be that hard. Yeah.
Dot recommends publiclab.org. This is a good community to reach out to as well. Let's see what they're about. Public Lab is a community and a nonprofit democratizing science to address environmental issues that affect people.
Democratize sounds like open source science.
That sounds super cool.
Huh. All right. Oh, okay, good. She says it is open source science. Click around the site. There are lots of projects. See for yourself. Topics. Land use, oil and gas, odor, stormwater, waste, all the darn. Soil. Land use. All right. Interesting. Sounds like they've got all these testing for like testing equipment for effectively what would be like citizen science. And I'm sure there's practical benefits to the landowner. They can figure, like here, they can figure out what kind of crops to plant or all that based on these measurements. But then that data can be put into the commons. And actually, this is super cool because here's the thing. When, let's say, a farmer shares this data with the commons, they'll be able to get immediate feedback as to, oh, you're right in the middle, or no, you're alkaline, oh no, you're acid. So there's incentive for them to go online and upload the data. They're not just doing it as an altruistic effort, but then of course all this data is a gold mine for creating a database of what's up with your soil, right? What's your what's soil like? How thick is the soil? Look at the water ones as well, she says. Topics. Water quality. Water quality for 500. Water quality for 200. Okay, water quality. How to test a water sheen to tell if it is bacterial or petroleum. Oh, nice. Wow. Building the simple water sensor platform. Oh my goodness, this is some bad stuff. I mean, bad. I mean, like good, bad. Yeah.
That kind of bad.
That kind of bad. Good kind of bad. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, this is really cool stuff. Public lab. Oh my goodness. Yes. They can help us do it simply and cheaply. I love it. We can measure all kinds of cool stuff. Dot. Good stuff. Oh my goodness. Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Bum, 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 bum. Wow. You see, this is collective intelligence. This is it. Right? But you know what's funny? The collective superintelligence in the future, they're going to rewatch these videos and it'll be like us piecing together fragments from some archaeological dig from 500,000 years ago. We figure out, oh, our primordial ancestors are, you know, we're just going to look like so basic, so like, oh, I know. You know, it's just funny because we're just going to be so far advanced. This is going to look like just slow motion groping, right? I don't know why they're wasting all this time. Why didn't they just do a mind meld? Well, they didn't have mind melds back then. That's why we're not doing mind melds. They don't exist yet. What's up, Les? I wasn't talking to you, by the way. I mean, I was just talking to everyone. I was talking, you know, talking smack. All right. I wonder what became of James. James. Wow. As if an answer to a question or a prayer. All right. Well, I do declare it is 5 a.m. Pacific time. We have 1 hour to go. At the 3 hour mark, I was like, oh man, I'm tired. 3 hours is a long time. Think like some Russian sci-fi movie from the 60s or something. It just goes on forever. Oh. But now, I'm just like an hour. No problem. No problem at all. No problem, man. Oh, Shankar, where are you? No.
Delaware.
Delaware.
So left Maryland, now passing through Delaware.
Ah. Oh my goodness, Miles.
Miles.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, Miles?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's my audio?
It's great.
Okay. I don't want to wake people up around here, so
No.
I'll whisper. So how are you guys doing? What are you talking about now? What's
Oh,
on?
goodness, we're really psyched, Miles. So much good stuff has happened. I don't even know where to begin.
Wow, look at everybody here.
Yeah.
Great.
It's quite a block party.
Right on. So
Good
I'm
to see you,
making
Miles.
tea.
Uh-huh.
Good to see you too. Wow, you guys
Did we
still
hear from-
giving her.
Did James, are we able to hear you now?
Hey, Mike.
I think so.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. All right.
Thank you.
And Miles, I think a couple of the Jose's might be, you know, not exactly here, but maybe left their window open or something like that. And, oh my goodness. Just so many good, cool contacts. There's this gentleman. Were you on, Miles, when Guy Lane from Australia joined us? Or was that past?
Yes, I was.
Oh, you were.
No, I did catch Guy. That was great.
Yeah. And then, let's see. Thank you, Les. Les is saying that staying up 24 hours straight is hard on you. I'm concerned for your health. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're doing it for Mother Earth. We're sacrificing for Mother Earth. Simple as that. Oh, but thank you.
Maybe what you could do, you could have the 24-hour block party, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't take 8 hours off, you know, in between like 12 and then 8 and then 12.
Nah.
You know, for long-term sustainability.
See, here's the thing. There's something super cool about sweeping the entire block. Whoosh. Because then it's neutral to all places around the world. They all get the full sweep. So James stays up for 24 hours. We stay up for 24 hours. Right? So it's very...
Yeah, just eventually you'll have to get a relief crew or something going so that you could take your rest period, go into, as we said, you operate it like a flight deck on one of these. Well, they're now almost flying 24 hours. There's Qantas is working. They're experimenting with flights from Sydney to London and Sydney to New York and Sydney to Rio. And those flights have never really been accomplished commercially. They fly Perth to London, but to go Sydney to London, it's just that extra couple hours, and it's a real challenge. So anyway, eventually you'll get something figured out.
Les says, when we go for 24/7, it will have to be different. Yeah, I can do this one night per week, but to do it 7 nights a week and not sleep at all, that'd be a lot. I don't know if I could do that. Yeah, I don't think that'd be a very good idea. I think we had better find an alternative arrangement for when we go 24/7. Oh. Oh, yeah.
Well, then eventually, with the worldwide system, you'll have people around the world. You could have crews all around the world flying this 24 hours, like as far as the host running the show. Wouldn't that be cool? Because once you do get people saying, carve me out an hour or 2 hours or whatever they want, then, you could basically take a rest then.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that as we go forward, so imagine that time is running horizontally, and then the thickness of those lines are the number of people engaged and available. So we can have basically really intense, shorter periods of time where lots of people are available. And then as less people are available, there's less intense meetings going on, basically, that are more specific to a certain topic, and there's fewer people going to them, but they're still important meetings, but there's kind of a big rally, and then, I mean, just the rally itself is going to be a lot. At some point, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, and as you onboard new languages, other languages, then that'll change how your lines that you showed there, the lines will show up in different languages, I guess. By the way, how'd that go? How'd the 1 hour Spanish edition go? I didn't attend to see that. I wasn't available.
It's a better question for Jamin.
Oh, is he going? Is he in the kitchen there?
Miles wants to know how the Spanish segment went.
It was good. There was a woman on who was a doctor, and she's also a guru of sorts in this community, this international community that Myra is a part of, spiritual community. And we just had a really interesting conversation about SRM and then Jorge, who often joins for the closing of this, so we might see Jorge in the next hour or so. By the way, for those of you who didn't hear, notably Miles, if this video conference gets suddenly terminated, it's because it will have hit the 24-hour mark, because we actually started getting the live streaming and all that going like 45 minutes before 6 in the morning. So we may get cut off any minute now. And if we do, just go back to the same exact link that got you here in the first place. We will do the same thing and we'll all meet back here. That's if we get cut off, which I think will probably happen any minute now. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Spanish part. So, you know, oh yeah, and then Jorge jumped in because he's all into like edible living forests and community with forests and all the multi-uses of forests and all that. And one of the challenges I had put to Jorge, which you may have heard, Miles, earlier, is, you know, what do we prioritize? Because for me, it's kind of obvious that we need to prioritize SRM. But that, it's just difficult. It's a difficult conversation. Why? Because everything's important, right? To say that edible living forests are not important or not as high priority disrespects the edible living forest community. You know what I mean? To say that salamanders are not so important as saving all of life on Earth disrespects the salamander community. So it's like it's all important, you know.
That's where Carl Jung's concept of individuation is so important, and that's why some people on this channel might think, you know, why do I keep bringing up my First Nations neighbors and friends and talking about Treaty 7 and what the heck does that have to do with saving planet Earth? You know, that's what some people will think. So I recognize that, you know, your audience isn't going to be concerned about my local issues, but my local issues are actually at the root of the global issues. My personal issues, my personal individuation. What individuation is basically the hero's journey. Here, let me share if I can. Am I okay to share something, or is there anybody got their hand up? Am I okay to carry on?
Nobody's got their hand up.
Okay. All right. So let me share this hero's journey photo. So, individuation. Pardon me. Where is it? I should have my glasses on, I guess. Here. Let's try this one. It's just loading right now. All right, yeah. So this fellow, I find him very interesting. His name is Paul van der Klee, and he's a pastor at a Dutch Reformed Calvinist church in Sacramento, California, and he has a really interesting YouTube channel. What I'm thinking of working on is, or what I will work on is it's hard to say, but it's kind of like challenging business as usual Christianity, because he's very much an expert in Christianity, the big religion. But the thing is, he's very receptive to hearing other people's concepts of creator, source, energy, giver of life, all these different names that we have. And you could even add in Carl Jung's concept of the God image within us, the supranatural aspect of God, the supra meaning not outside of us, but inside of us. So you can't see it very well, but down below in the little square there, it's the hero's journey. And this is the concept of individuation. And I have to look very carefully. I should grab my glasses. But basically, you go through life, with things happening, but then you think there's got to be maybe something spiritual that needs to be discovered. So you go from the known into the unknown underneath that line, and it's trials and tribulations. But as long as you're focused on that ring, the dragon's got the ring in its lair, you go into the abyss, and then it's like a death, and then you rebirth into something else, and you return having found new truth, right? And you find meaning and purpose in this hero's journey. So that's individuation, and that's where everybody is going to bring something they think is important. And it is important, even though that's a local issue, to the overall global issue. And that's where everybody coming here and being allowed to say their story is really powerful, right? And and for people who see, for example, and this is where we can talk about everyone's individual experience. So my experience is that I worked for 30 years in the matrix, working for the railway, and I realized there's something fundamentally wrong with not only that railway, but with the whole system. And so we're all going through this hero's journey, and it's only by correcting or working towards our own personal meaning and purpose that we'll solve these problems. And Carl Jung would say that you're being drawn by the numinous. And my friend who's very knowledgeable about this, Craig Nelson, he defines the numinous, which means breath, or comes from the word pneuma, which means breath. The breath beckons, the numinous beckons. We're pulled, like, why are we all here? I could just turn on the TV and watch some nonsense, frivolous entertainment, but instead I'm drawn here because what's so impressive and impactful is that everybody here is on some sort of a hero's journey. Okay, so any other thoughts on that? Anybody?